Welcome back to another video. My name is Kyle and I suck at budgeting. So in my last video, I talked about potentially doing like a reading segment towards the end of my videos. And people have responded that they would like that. So we're going to do that. But I figure before we get to that point, I should kind of update with what I've read so far. So we're going to go through the books I've read so far this year, talk a little bit about them. I'll try not to spoil too much about it, but hopefully get you interested in reading some of them. And then for those of you that are here just for the YNAB content, I left YNAB in the background so you can stare at that and watch the video still. So I have read 8 books so far this year. The way this is all kind of transpired is what typically happens is I read books like from November to like January, and then I don't touch another book again until November or January of the next year. My goal for last year was to read more consistently throughout the year, which I did very successfully. I read 21 books last year. 3 of them were Stormlight Archive books. So they were all 1,000 to 1,200 pages. So I did a whole bunch of stuff. And what I found towards the end of the year was that I was getting to just reading fiction, which was different because I normally only read nonfiction. So my goal for this year is still keep it consistent throughout the year, but read 2 books at a time, 1 fiction, 1 nonfiction. So that's what I'm trying this year. So I've got my list of books. I've got a stack of books. I've got another stack of books. So we'll start there. So let's start with what I'm currently reading right now. I'm currently reading Dungeon Crawler Carl, Butcher's Masquerade. I found this series towards the end of last year. I am a big fan. This is book 5. It's a 10-book series. Book 8 comes out in May, I think. I'm a little bit late to the game because I just started in November, but I've read 4.5 of these since November. The first one I read in 2 days. It was really good. Loved it. It is not a book for everyone. So here's the premise behind the book. You follow this guy, Carl. Carl was basically cat sitting for his girlfriend who went to Bermuda, something like that, I think. And the cat went outside through a window, and while they were outside, aliens attacked, flattened the entire Earth. Basically, anyone in a building died, and they had a choice. They could try and live and make it work outside of the outside with no buildings around, no shelter, no nothing. Or they could enter an 18-level dungeon and try and survive and live that way. So they decide to enter the dungeon. Not really a spoiler, but the cat, whose name is Princess Donut, she was a show cat, won a lot of awards. Carl got a special pet biscuit, gave it to the cat. Cat started talking. So the cat now talks and interacts with Carl. They are now in this dungeon. And what happens when you go into this dungeon, the dungeon is, it's an RPG, a role-playing game, essentially. So they have to level up. They have to do all this. This is what this genre is called, lit RPG, sorry. And I will be perfectly honest with you. It took me a long time to figure out what the lit part of RPG was, because I thought it was like, oh, this book is really lit. Then I realized that lit standard for literature, and I felt really stupid. So yeah, Dungeon Crawler Carl. This is book 5. Like I said, the first one is great. It's a lot inappropriate. I think it curses on the first page. So there's a lot of graphic language in it. So if that's not your cup of tea, you're not going to like it. I have a very foul mouth. I'm from New York. I consider the F word a comma most of the time. Try to keep it clean for you all on the YouTubes. But So yeah, great book, love it. I'm going to be finishing this series and can't wait for the new stuff to come out. So, editing Kyle here. I forgot to mention about this Dungeon Crawler Carl series. If you are an audiobook person, I understand the audiobook is absolutely fantastic. I always get the guy's name wrong. It's Josh Hayes or Jeff Hayes. He does all the voices for the book. He is a phenomenal voice actor. So if you're into that sort of stuff, definitely check out the audiobook version of this. But again, I highly recommend reading it as well. Back to the video. So let's get into the books that I've read this year. So I finished this year Hero of Ages. Why did you do that? By Brandon Sanderson. So this is part of the Mistborn trilogy. I was on a Brandon Sanderson kick this past year. So like I said, I read a whole bunch of the Stormlight Archive. Then I went to the Mistborn trilogy. So I've read the first Mistborn trilogy now. And I read half this book before surgery and then finished the third book after surgery. So really recommend the series. If you're not into the Stormlight Archive, it's a very different, it's very easy. I find it much easier to follow. My problem with the Stormlight Archive is that the names are weird, and you'll talk about a character, and then like 14 chapters later, they'll bring the character back, and I'll be like, who in the world is this? I remember the name, but I don't remember who it is. So then I go to like the coppermine.net, which is like the Brandon Sanderson, like knowledge base. And I start reading who this thing was, and then it spoils something. I'm like, oh man, like, so I find them hard to read because of that. And when you're talking about a book that's, 1,200 pages, you have that happen a lot. Brandon Sanderson's writing style is okay. I like Matt Dinniman's style a lot better. I joke with a friend at work. There's one thing that Brandon Sanderson does all the time, and he uses the word save in a way that I don't think he should be using it, and he uses it a lot. It's like, I entered the room and it was empty, save for like 3 bugs. And it's like, just say except for. Like, the room was empty except for a few bugs. Like, why do you, and he did this in one chapter. He did it like 4 times in one page. And I was like, you are a writer. Come up with a more creative way to do this. Matt Dinniman's done it like 2 or 3 times in the series, but I'm noticing that in this series, he uses the word astride a lot, which, just use the word next to. I walked astride to my dog. No, I walked next to my dog. Be a human being. All right. Sorry. Rant over. All right. So the next book I read was this book. This is called, Every Tool's a Hammer. Life is What You Make It, by Adam Savage. Adam Savage is from Mythbusters. My sister got me this for Christmas and got it autographed for me. Really enjoyed this book. Most of the book is stories of his life as a creator. So like his time working on like Star Wars and working in Mythbusters. But there is a handful of stuff in here that's, how do you build your shop? What kind of glue should you use? How do you make cardboard, models and, that sort of stuff. So it's kind of cool in that. The frustrating thing for me about this book is it inspired me to be more creative at a time where I couldn't be creative because I couldn't move. But I recommend the book if you're a creative, especially if you're like hands-on making type stuff. Good book, a lot of good information. So, next book, Dungeon Crawler Carl, Anarchist Cookbook. This is book 3 of the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. Again, great book. If you like the first one, people say you have to read the first 2 to get into it. I was hooked by the first 60 pages. So I went out, I bought the first 2 because people said you got to read the first 2. After page 60, I went back and bought the other 5. So, Anarchist Cookbook, it's just a continuation. It's just more floors, and the story continues. So, there's that. So I follow Ryan Holiday on YouTube, and, his recommendations are hit or miss. He's recommended a lot of the Cal Newport stuff, the digital minimalism, deep work, and slow productivity. Love those books. So he recommended a bunch of books recently that I went, all right, he's recommending these books. A lot of the stuff that I've read that he's recommended, I like. Let's get some of these books. So the first book he recommended was Gift from the Sea. This is written by Anne Morrow Lindbergh, the wife of Charles Lindbergh. Hated this book. Can't stand the book. Couldn't finish it fast enough. I think I am the wrong gender for this book. And I also have a problem with older language. And this is very like 50s kind of language. Is that 50s maybe? But it's earlier 1900 language, which it doesn't really do it for me. I was really excited, learning, how to be calm from the sea. She talks about shells, and it just didn't do it for me. I know this book's been around forever. A lot of people love it. Was not for me, but maybe it's for you. Next book. Dungeon Crawler Carl, Book 4. This is Gate of the Feral Gods. Another great book. Going back to Book 3. So Book 3 is a nightmare to read. It's all about trains and a train system. It's very confusing. This one, much better. I like this one much better. The problem with the Dungeon Crawler Carl books is they're getting very thick. We're almost at Brandon Sanderson level books at this point. So this was 500 and something pages, I think. Yeah, so almost 600. The one I'm reading now is 700. He's got an 800 page book coming up. So, but again, if you like this series, you're going to like this. Next book. Mitch Albom, Twice. I have never read a Mitch Albom book that I did not like. This was no exception. This is a really good book. I was talking to a friend about this. You need to approach this book as a love story. And being someone who reads a lot of fantasy and a lot of sci-fi lately, they do talk about time travel in here. This is not a time travel book. There's a lot of holes in the time travel theory in this book. Do not approach this as a time travel book. It is a love story. If you approach it that way, you're going to like the book. It's about a guy who has the ability to redo parts of his life, but he can only redo it once. And then the second time he's got to live with the consequences. So that's why it's called Twice. But really good book, highly recommend. And again, like I said, all the Mitch Albom stuff I've read has been excellent. This is one of his fiction books. He does have some nonfiction books as well. Tuesdays with Morrie is kind of where he hit it big. I read that in high school and college. Going to go back and read it again. I've read it several times. I haven't read it in several years, but Mitch Albom, Twice. We get back to a Ryan Holiday recommendation. This is a book that I was really excited about after I looked at the title and kind of the description of it. Again, another Ryan Holiday recommendation, Moral Ambition. Not a fan. If I read this book 20 years ago, maybe it would be different for me. But at the point in my life that I'm at right now, not for me. It's Moral Ambition, Stop Wasting Your Talent and Start Making a Difference. If the book were about that, I think I'd be into it. This turned into a history book real quick. It was a history lesson of people who have moral ambition, not how to use your ambition to better yourself and better the world, which is what I thought the book was going to be. It's Rutger Bregman. He is from the Netherlands, I believe. It's very I don't know how to say it. Research oriented. There's there's 60 pages of footnotes in this book. Like, it's ridiculous. Really well researched, but again, if this talks about working 80 to 100 hour weeks, I am the complete opposite right now. It is just not for me. So that's that book. Last book I read this year so far, Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. Read this in college, read it again. Good book, especially for the time that we're in. Yeah, I recommend it. I will probably read again, especially the last chapter of this book, which talks about the last two chapters really, which talks about his logotherapy. The first book is his time in the concentration camps. But the logotherapy stuff is real interesting. And I want to get back into it, take some notes on it. So Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, been around forever. So recommend that one. So what am I reading now? So we talked about that. Butcher's Masquerade. I'm, I don't know, 2/3 of the way in, 3/4 of the way in, something like that. I think it's 2/3. I could look in Fable, but I will put my Fable. If you guys use Fable to track your stuff, if you want to like friend me on Fable, I'll put my Fable information in the description. So let's talk a little bit about my TBR, because there's a lot of stuff that I'm looking to read. So we'll start with, let me find it. Hang on. We're going to start with this one. Filterworld. I'm going to start reading this one. That is the book I mentioned in my last video. It talks about the algorithms that are basically running our lives these days. And it's one of the reasons that I've decided to get an iPod, which should be here next week. I'm very excited. So I started reading this on Wednesday, and my battery in my Kobo died, and then it wiped out my co-reader installation, and I had to rebuild it. And then my battery died again today, and I don't know what's going on. I guess I didn't charge it. So me being stupid. So Filterworld is on the list of things to be read. Let's see. I think after that, I'm going to start this one. This is called Doesn't Have to Be Crazy at Work. Since I'm getting ready to go back to work, I'm going to reread this book. I've read it once before. This is by James Fried, or Fried. It looks like Fried, but maybe it's Fried. I don't know. And David Heinemeier Hansen. And these are the creators of the application called Basecamp, which is a productivity suite. And this is basically how they run their company. It's really, really well done. I wish more companies would read this and base how they do their business structure on the way they do this. One of the things that hit me hard was, work is not a family. And anytime you find a job that says, oh, work is family, it's basically an excuse to get you to work there more often. What they say is that while work is not a family, we support your family, which is a different way of looking at it, but kind of say the same thing. Highly recommend the book. It's an easy read. So like their stuff. And then my friend, who I do a podcast with, we do a podcast about music. And we're on kind of a hiatus right now. We do like seasons. We do short seasons. And we're going to start season 4 right before I got the notice that I was having surgery. So we've pushed off season 4, and I have a new idea for season 4. We haven't talked about it a lot yet, but it involves the iPod. So he sent me this book for recovery. I haven't started it yet, but this is called How Music Works by David Byrne, who I think is from the Talking Heads. Is that right? I don't know, but he sent me this book. He got it for himself. Have not started it, but that's going to be in the works. Tuesday, I went to Barnes & Noble because I got really excited that I thought Dungeon Crawler Carl 8 came out, because I saw this cover and went, oh, it's Matt Dinniman, and it sounds kind of like one of his titles for Dungeon Crawler Carl. There's actually a new novel by Matt Dinniman. I've never read anything other than Dungeon Crawler Carl. So I bought this thinking it was Dungeon Crawler Carl 8, and it's not. It's just a novel. So this is on the TBR. So that's that. And then one of the guys I follow on YouTube, another guy, his name is Tyrone. What's his name? Tyrone. Hang on. I think it's Tyrone Davis, but he goes by Bookish Dad Reads. He started reading this book. Got about halfway through and was like, this is going to be my first 5 of the year. And then he said it got very scientific towards the end, and he kind of like went, it's not that great. I'm not going to finish the series. But based on his recommendation, I read We Are Legion by Dennis Taylor. Basically, from what I understand, it's about a guy who wants to live forever, essentially, and has a contract to, when science gets better, to bring him back to life, or, unthaw him or whatever, that they will. But it turns out they just turn him into an AI. So this is We Are Legion, We Are Bob. So that's TBR. And then one more book. This is a book I read every year, or try to read every year. I've read it probably 30 times at this point. I've given away probably close to 30 copies, about to buy 2 more to give away. This is The Music Lesson by Victor Lamont Wooten. Victor is an amazing human being. He's an amazing musician. The book is fantastic. There's a sequel called The Spirit of Music, which is great. Not as good as this, but it's good. This is my tattered and beaten up copy. Victor has signed this for me. And I've got somewhere. Do I have it close? Oh, I do. Hang on one second. I got to get something else to show you. Okay. So before I left New York, one of the last concerts I saw was Victor Wooten live at the Iridium. I took pictures of the concert. I was doing a lot of wedding photography at the time, so I basically treated it as I would treat a wedding, but couldn't move. So I sat, in my seat, but I brought my full rig, without flash, and took pictures. So this was Victor Wooten live at the Iridium, June 3rd, 2012. I actually made a book of it, gave him a book. He signed this one for me, requested copies to all of the pictures. I sent him all the pictures, offered him another copy of the book if he wanted it. So, but all of the pictures that I took that night, that's Steve Bailey. This is the drummer's, set list. That's JD Blair, the drummer. JD's a really cool dude. I got there early because the Iridium is one of those places where you sit down and you have food. And so I got there early to have food. JD came over, saw me sitting there by myself, came over and sat and started talking about music. Really cool dude. Some more JD Blair. He saw me during the show and looked at me a bunch of times. This young lady, this is Crystal Peterson. I had no idea when I moved out here that Crystal Peterson lives in Cincinnati. So when I saw Victor the first time here in Cincinnati, she came up and sang because she lives here. Had no idea. Some more Steve Bailey. Some Victor. Some more Victor. And somewhere in here, I've got a picture of Crystal that she signed for me. Let me see if I can find that quickly. So here's one of the times JD caught me, looking at me. Some more Crystal Peterson. She's an amazing singer. There's Crystal's autograph, hard to see, but unbelievable singer. She is incredible. This big picture here I have hanging on my wall, printed on metal. And then that's the end shot. From the Iridium. So anyway, yeah, The Music Lesson by Victor Wooten. It's a book I read every year. When I was teaching music back in New York, I had a long wait list of people who wanted to study with me, and the place I was working at, they're like, come up with some sort of way to deter people because we need to push them onto other people. And I was like, all right, make them read this book. Start selling this book. They need to read this book before they can study with me. And because I use it heavily in my teaching when I taught music. So, all right. I think we've got enough books. So I'll keep you posted on where we're at with reading. And thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed my ramblings about reading. Talk to you soon. See ya.